Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cut the Shit, Cue the Genius show. I don't know what episode it is, so that means we're on a roll and we're doing something right. Gotta tell you, get stopped all the time of like, oh, I love you guys on the Cut the Shit show. I think what they love is the profanity that they can come out with and tell me. We love your shit show. That's what they love. My name is Sally Algazar. I'm with Liz King Caruso. And yes, the bat signal was sent out, I believe, last night, evening time, UK time, and this is where you know who your friends are, where like you send out a bat signal. Vanessa, can you come on the show and talk to us about this amazing topic about, event ROI, which everybody, it keeps them up at night. It keeps them up during the day. It truly is stressful, but welcome to Cut the Shit.
Thank you.
Genius. So you're our genius today, our lifeline.
I'll do my best.
Yes, this could be the Win $1 Million show. Liz, you remember that show? Who wants to be a millionaire?
Oh, yeah, we have that.
And then you would get a lifeline. So Vanessa's our lifeline.
I'm happy to be Robin to your Batman. So I'm also always happy to be in a place where a little bit of light profanity is welcome too.
Hey, we're here to please. Let's put it that way. But before we start, Vanessa, I think everybody knows you from your past lives, and now we're doing a debut for you. So share with us what your new adventure is before we get started.
Well, I will. And it's interesting you say that folks know me from my past lives, because actually a lot of people don't know me from my really past lives, which was when I used to be, I had 3 different managing director roles of various different events and B2B media businesses. And I'm now taking all of that experience, tallying it up with the event tech experience that I've had very recently, which is where I really got to know you guys super well, and now starting to do advisory with companies in the B2B media space to help with scale up and some startups as well in there, and anything around growth, to be honest, and go-to-market value propositioning. So it's really exciting times.
And what's the name of your new company?
I'm going to say it out loud. Forte Futures. That's the first time I've said it. It's quite scary, but in a very good way.
There you go. Hey, if it doesn't scare the shit out of you, then something's wrong.
You are absolutely right.
And Liz knows that too, because Liz has scared herself shitless many times. Many goes on new projects and they kick ass. So there you go. Hello, Rachel.
It's exciting and lots to look forward to.
Yes, absolutely. So we're talking about event ROI. And we're talking about how brands really need to not only reset, but reevaluate what ROI truly means for them as a brand, especially at events. So let's start with the exhibitors, because we've all been there as exhibitors, or we've witnessed exhibitors struggling to, with that acronym ROI, and going back to their C-suite and saying, yeah, I only collected 5 business cards at the bar.
I've been that as well in very recent years, as well as witnessing it. I've been it. It is hard. It is.
It truly is. So paint the picture. Give us examples. What are your thoughts as a brand that is, and maybe we need to drill it down to a first timer at a show versus a 10-timer at a show.
Okay. Well, as an exhibitor.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Okay. Well, I think if I was to say there's a couple of things that first timers at a show really need to think about, is why the hell they decided to do this show in the first place. And I know that sounds blindingly obvious, but it's so easy to invest in an event with one specific intention: branding, lead generation, whatever it might be. And then suddenly you think, oh, but I've invested, I should try and do all of these things. And actually, if it's your first timer, you may not have invested that much. Your budget may not stretch to be able to cover all of those different things. So the first bit would be stay laser focused on why you decided to do it. in the first place. And the second thing I would say to first timers to a show is really, really try and send the best people you can possibly send to that show to represent you, because it's your first time. First impressions count, right? This is an age-old saying, but it's always true. And I've seen this a lot. I'm sure you guys have seen this too many times, where actually it feels like it's a bit risky. So maybe let's just send those who aren't quite so high up the food chain, in case it's not a success. So those really senior people won't see that it's not a success, or you don't want to invest their time in necessarily. But it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy then, that if you don't send your A team, you're not going to get A+ results. So I think that would be my 2 bits of advice for first time sponsors to a show. Liz, if you've got any thoughts to add on to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny because there's like a lot of pressure, and I feel this on the event organizer side, on the event organizer to deliver these leads. But I try to always remind any exhibitors that we work with that it is a two-way street. It's not like you pay money and you get leads. It's a lot about that interaction with the attendees, and the people that you send matter. That matters so much. We've had people complain about a sponsorship ROI, and I'm like, I saw you at the bar all night drinking with your colleagues. I sent people to you and they were still not able to connect with you, and it's like, I think that there's this very disjointed expectation that like you put the money in the event, you get leads, which somehow also are supposed to be magically qualified and magically ready to buy right now. I think like on the event on the event side, there has to be some expectation that you're meeting leads to court them and to start the beginning of a relationship. I mean, I still have people coming to me now for vendors that were at events 10 years ago that they saw at that event. Yeah. And now they've got something and they're like, hey, do you have a contact for that company? I'm like, yeah, I do. But I don't think sponsors realize how long of a tail there is to follow after you make an investment in one of these events, whatever it is.
Totally agree with that. I was actually one of the things I wrote down in my notes, which is if you're not the sweet spot right now, just find out when you might be. Might is enough, and just earn permission to keep in touch, because in reality, being in the sweet spot at that particular moment that you have that conversation is incredibly low, and that's okay. But this is when you start to get into the debate then around the return on the investment. Is, to use Liz's example there, 10 years later, attribution is getting quite challenging at that point. So really thinking about immediate return on investment. I'm going to keep using the ROI phrase, although I know that Dahlia's not in love with the term right now. But also think about what's the midterm return and what's the long-term return that you expect to get here. And be really open and candid about that, and communicate that upwards as well internally, that it is an opportunity to deliver more than just an effect in the next 2 months. This can really, really carry on. And I totally agree with you, Liz. I've seen that many, many times, that the relationship that's built, the bond, the engagement, that's what really, really counts and has longevity. Whereas getting a business card in a fishbowl, there's no longevity to that whatsoever.
No, doesn't mean.
And I think honestly, the whole art and science behind exhibiting has changed. So, you need to not just be aligned 10 by 10s next to each other in regards to just waiting for people to come. And I know there's so many different conversations about this where we feel like this is like 101. Why are we still, having these conversations about like, know the audience, know who your audience is, what kind of content they are wanting to, consume. How do they want to know about your services and your products? And it's not always sell mode. So that's the other part too. So like, I think what happens is it's drilled that, okay, all shows that you're at, yes, it is for business relationships. And maybe that's the goal, instead of saying it's for leads, because from business relationships, then you can sort of go into tangents. Are you a lead? How warm or cold is the lead? How long is it going to take to, come to signing a contract, for example, or are you a relationship that can potentially be a partnership and that will extend the life of the event that you are at? I think the whole idea should be around relationships. It's even a relationship between your brand and the event participants that are walking around. So especially when it's in our industry. So I'm not going to ask the two of you because I'm probably going to be way over how many industry events you've been at since. Yeah, I've been to way too many.
You have been to way too many.
That's why my name is Exhausted, Liz.
I see.
And some are back to back, but you can imagine within our industry, it's the same because the hustle from a brand perspective is real. But I wonder where, even as a brand, you are trying to rebuild or revitalize a relationship with your clients, your partners, and prospects. So like even brands that we know within our industry, they're coming back and saying, hey, our name is Eminem. My name is, remember that song? But it's either, am I dating myself? What's happening here? Okay.
It's like one of the biggest songs on the planet for a while.
Right. That's what everybody should do. Everybody should be like rapping at their booths. That would bring you leads, right?
Well, but this is the thing. I think we talk about booths. We are leaning towards sort of trade show environments with a lot of the conversations we're having here. But I think a lot of it very easily transfers into a conference environment too.
Totally.
They are no longer moment in time activities, which they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You would do a business card exchange and then have probably very little interaction opportunity with that individual. But now, with social media and with video content and with all of the other content channels that we have, there are so many ongoing touch points that can actually take place. And so that's why this moment in time of an event having a potential return for this short window, it's quite an outdated mentality. I get that from a marketer's perspective, that's where it gets complicated is, okay, I want to spend $5,000 on this event, 50 grand on this event. And how am I going to justify that? What do I need to actually be able to report on to justify? Because you do have to. I mean, I'm not suggesting that you should abandon all immediate event reporting. That's something you're making me think as well, Dalia, is, you talked about follow-up, and is this a relationship that we're going to nurture, or is this a hot lead, or what's the right steps for the follow-up? Firstly, I think prepare that before you go to the event. So much of this could and should be prepared before the event has even taken place. But I really want to get in here. The speed of follow-up for me is very often too slow. And I say that from having seen it internally. I say it having been on the receiving end of a reach out after I've met somebody at an event of some description, and I go into their prospect funnel. Sometimes it's great and it really stands out because I'm like, whoa, I only just met this person yesterday and they've sent me a really smart, interesting, engaging note to say they enjoyed our conversation when we talked about X, Y, and Z, and they'd like to keep in touch, and maybe here's a piece of content.
So you're talking not about the emails of, hey, it was great to meet you, and you never met them at the show floor. Have you ever gotten those?
Yeah, not a massive fan of those. I really, really dislike
first name. You don't get the ones, hey, first name?
Yeah, I mean, we've all had them, unfortunately. But what's even worse is for me, like that's just like, okay, generic. We're kind of used to it, not justifying that it's a good thing, but it happens. But it's when I get something that's totally irrelevant because they are, I told them I'm not a prospect for you, and yet I get an email or a LinkedIn, from someone who I didn't see somebody.
10 emails for a demo. Like, why not? Because you were not interested.
And it's such a waste
of your inbox in case you missed it.
Exactly.
Over again. You're like, I am
the best thing in your life right now. Like, why are you? It turns into Fatal Attraction. Do you guys remember Fatal Attraction? I do not get like whatever. I don't remember Glenn Close's line. She's like, don't ignore me or I will boil your bunny, kind of thing. Like, turns into that. But so here's the interesting thing is like, what if exhibitors or what if an event organizer actually instills in exhibitors' minds that they are just brand activations.
Mm-hmm.
And what if your brand activation is either a booth style, or maybe it's because like we were talking before before getting on, and Vanessa, you were saying, sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be a booth. Why are you there in the first place? And a lot of times when you ask a company, why are you here? They're like, well, if I'm not, they'll think I'm dead. Right?
Yeah.
So maybe your activation could be something different, right? Rachel says a foot rub, but I'm not sure about that. There needs to
Some
be
kind of
gloves
resurrection.
involved.
I'm not dead.
Robert's still on the hip hop Eminem thing,
I
so I feel
love
like
it.
he's doing something behind the scenes, dancing. But Vanessa, you had, for example, you had shared a great example, and this is where I say maybe that's what it should be called. Exhibitors is like a legacy term. What if it's called brand activations and it fulfills the goals of the company?
So
And
yes, I like this, and I'm going to give you
okay.
some actual examples that I've
Yes.
heard and seen recently that I think are awesome. But before I do that, on this activations concept, I think there's something in that, but it has to start from the beginning. From as soon as you engage any sort of sponsor or exhibition investment, you need to start having those conversations with them. Then you can't sell them a booth as an exhibition provider and then introduce this concept of it being more of an activation approach 2 months, 3 months after that's taken place, because the ship has sailed. I think at that point it's got to be a commitment from the beginning. I've tried to do, as when I was organizer side, I tried, I would say, with reasonable success, to educate sponsors to get better results from the events. But with the benefit of hindsight, I wish we'd done that much earlier in the entire process of them becoming part of the sponsor and exhibition group at the events, because it felt like the right thing to do it close to the event. But same thing, plans had been made, the cats were out of the bags by this point. So, but the things I've seen that I have loved engagement wise, that for me is what it's always about at an event, is you're trying to engage with people who might be great prospects for you at some point in the future. And without engaging them, you'll never have a chance to know whether they are good potential prospects for you. And there are 3 things I've seen work really well, or heard about at least. And I'm going to start with the best one. So I'm going to drop it like it's hot, just as Robert suggested we do here.
Do it.
I love this example. Now, I am annoyed with myself because I can't remember the event or who the organizer was, but it was very recent, last 4 to 6 weeks, I would say. And I read the case study on LinkedIn, and I am very keen to steal this because it's excellent. Large event, massive city, like a Vegas style city. I don't know if it was, but very typical event city in the US. And this particular sponsor invested in a 1-hour cocktail reception in a rooftop bar with a beautiful view, about 20 minutes from the venue to walk. And they approached the 50 most senior prime prospects that they could tell from the list. They were going from a pretty straightforward selection criteria effort, but crucially, there were people they didn't know. That was a very, very important piece of this. They contacted them all via LinkedIn, or if they had any other contact details, directly through those as well, to invite them to come to their 1 hour, which is nice and short, hosted cocktail reception, and they would pick them up in a Maserati and courier them there effectively.
Very
And
nice.
they had 50 acceptances out of 50. And this is, to me, mind-blowing to get that level of engagement from what looks like your ideal customer profile, at least on paper. Then it apparently was a bit of a logistical nightmare doing all of the Maserati trips.
But that's the shit show slow-mo thing that happens behind the scene. Nobody cares about that.
Exactly.
They showed up and went
it
in a
happens.
Maserati on a rooftop. That's
You
what
just got to
you
make
want.
this stuff happen. You got to make this shit happen.
Yeah.
There we go. I dropped in an S bomb.
You did.
But they didn't get 50 out of 50 turn up, but it was very high, like high 40s actually turned
Perfect.
up. And there was therefore all these people they had no prior relationship with, who were walking into a room with them like, great effort, guys. Love this. Hello, I'm whoever. Thanks for having me. Already the engagement is sky high, and it was a really fantastic experience. So I love that. And they reckon the whole thing cost them somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 to meet to engage 50 prospects and meet nearly all of those 50 prospects. So I love that. So that's number one. Number two, this is really simple. It was a booth I was involved in last year, and I was so happy with how this worked. We gave away branded water cartons. We were very close to the entrance exit of the exhibition hall. Everybody needs water. It was a sustainable approach to distributing water. It was the easiest conversation starter ever. Would you like to have some water? Great. I'm Vanessa. Who are you?
Because,
Let's
hey,
have a quick
would you
chat.
like to have a demo? No, but let me, like,
No.
Yeah.
But it did lead to some demos, and it led to engagement and to conversations that had the opportunity to go somewhere. Super simple. Again, very low cost. I would estimate we probably spent something like $400 or $500 tops, and ended up, I think we probably got about 200 water cartons for that. So we had about 200 conversations on the back of it. It was just so easy and straightforward. I would definitely do that again. And then the other one, I was very keen to come up with something. Maserati had quite their sort of possibly slightly more male orientation to it. So I was digging through old notes and asking buddies. And this was a while ago, but it worked. It was a large conference, I would say. It was about 800 people. And it was in Europe, and it was nearly all European attendance. So we put on a weekend giveaway to the Moulin Rouge for 2 people. So that's a fab show in Paris, in case anyone watching isn't familiar. And it cost to get people there from wherever they were in Europe and put them up it cost, again, $600, $700 ish at the time. Maybe it'd be $800 now. But the engagement in it and the interest in it and the buzz that it created across the whole 2 days of the event was, I mean, it was just worth everything. And to talk about return, it wasn't just return on leads, the energy, the effervescence, the conversation starters.
People still remember you afterwards. Hey, you're the one who gave me water, or you're the one who put me in a Maserati, or you're the one who sent me to Moulin Rouge. So that is incredible. But that is part of knowing how to, like, surprise and delight
and connect
and to engage, like, almost the senses, because you're getting people excited to a point of, oh, you're not going to show me 65 slides or screenshots anymore. You really want to just, like, have a conversation and say hello. But that's getting to know the audience. And then just on that point, though, Liz, you were just at a show that was almost they flipped the script from the examples that Vanessa was sharing with us.
Yeah, well, I think there's obviously the benefit, right, of like sponsors and attendees and finding each other. But I also feel like there's always a tension there. It's kind of like you want to sell something, they may or may not want to buy something, and trying to mash these two groups together. So we have a client, we just executed their event last week, who just did away with sponsors. Their attendees were like, we don't like it. We will pay more for a ticket if you just don't have them here.
Fantastic.
And it was great. And it's great ROI. Now, this client has integrated sponsors in other ways, so through affiliate marketing, discounts on like software that their members use. There are sponsorships, so they're not losing that revenue, but they're finding much better ways to do it than putting them all at tables and then hoping that these two groups mash together. And I just think it's worth considering. I'm not against at all sponsorships, but I think we have to just think about that tension and how we can make it, like, all these ideas are so great. And then the question is, how many people put their names in the hat for Moulin Rouge, and then out of that, what came out of it? That's really the return. That's how you get the attention. And then the question is, how do you go from there to make these people want to buy from you?
How do you work it?
Yeah, you got to work it. Absolutely.
You've jogged my memory with the Moulin Rouge. There were, let's call them scorecards, and you had to have met, I think it was 4 sponsors to be able to put your scorecard in the pot. So was it slightly forced? Yeah, a little bit. But were people actually really willing to do it? Yes, they were. But the thing I love this story, Liz, about doing away with sponsors, and what it really makes me think is this is all about being attendee centric.
Yeah.
Do what your attendees
that was asked. They delivered what was asked from the attendee, meaning, like, we will pay extra, but don't put people that are trying to sell us something that we don't want to buy. And so the other part of the ROI, I think which changes the conversation for many exhibitors as the traditional kind of ROI, is you don't necessarily have to focus only on the attendees or the buyers that are walking a show floor or attending a conference. Like there has to be some sort of ROI set for potential partnerships or relationships. And, of those that are already in the room. So I do know, like, industry events right now, they're very supplier heavy. That's fine. It's the name of the game. Everybody's like, I'm going to go because there's planners there. But then they get disappointed when there's like, it's more supplier heavy than planner heavy. But there needs to be a way where they can think a little bit different on partnerships. How can you co-market, for example? If you find DMOs in the audience, go to them. They potentially can either be partners or they can be co-marketers to a bigger audience, not at the show. So I think the brain training has to be of, honestly, how do you work the room? Because there's some people that go in there and they say, oh, it only had 5 planners at the reception. I'm going to be done and I'm going to be at the bar. And then that's it. So it makes me think of the whole acronym, because our industry loves acronyms. There's an acronym for everything. I think there actually is an acronym for this show, which there is. And it took me a minute to understand. CTS means cut the shit. I'm like, wait, what? I still like to say cut the shit, not CTS. But, well, Vanessa.
But cut the shit. When you're planning your exhibition investment, just don't add in any shit. Don't put in pens and pads and stuff that isn't actually going to add value just because you did it before. So abandonment. I'm a massive fan of abandonment and thinking, what do we do before that actually didn't work, wasn't really worth it? Abandon it. So cut the shit. Don't just do it again because you did it before. I think this is so important right now with the topic that we're talking about.
I like the abandonment exercise because honestly, I think going forward, our events and the different audiences that we're like catering events to and conferences and experiences, they're totally different. They are not about tchotchkes. And you guys always like, and I'm saying this to the audience, you've always complained about the tchotchkes. Like you've always complained about those people that came with a bag in the end of the show, and you're trying to like unload all the stuff you don't want to ship back. Nobody is going to take like, those squeezy balls anymore. Like it's not going to happen. So yes, abandonment works. I want to run 2 acronyms by both of you and by the audience as well. So one, I'm giving total credit to Tim Groot with grip on this one, is ROT, which is return on time at an event. All right, Rachel, you can have your socks and your notepads, but that's it. No more other tchotchkes. So what do you think of return on time? And how do you think that could be measured at different events?
I can go first. For me, yes. So I think yes, firstly. Okay. And that Tim's filled with genius ideas. You should get him on here to be a genius if you haven't already.
Don't give the Dutch boy any ideas.
But I think I would definitely recommend considering, particularly if you are exhibiting at an event, which is what we're broadly talking about here, thinking about what do I want to find out at this event about my target market, about my potential target market that I don't yet understand, about my product fit, about my positioning that will help me sell more in the future. And actually having that as a metric that you measure. You want to have 5 conversations, 50 conversations with people about these specific areas, pre-agreed all before the event. And that's part of your return on time of going to the event. What do you get that's more than just direct results from that event, but really that impacts your future potential? So that's just the first thing that springs to mind on that front. I'm a big fan of that.
Liz, what do you think?
Yeah, as Robert says, time is money. So I think it's important to always be evaluating how much time you're spending. But I think the other side of that brands should really think about is how much time they're requesting from their target buyers.
Yes.
You know, like sit through an hour demo. I have sat through so many of those that are not at all, like I've literally put myself on mute, put myself off video. I'm cleaning my whole house. I didn't hear a single thing they said. And they never once realized I wasn't talking for a whole hour. You know, it's like, what do you want? You know, I think that you have to calculate how much time you're putting into the investment and then be real. Don't ask people to sit on an hour demo if they don't have something that makes sense right now. Or if they do, give them a 10-minute snippet directly about what you can fill that they need.
Yeah.
And the rest of the details can be worked out when they're ready to sign a little paper. But all this, you know, you go to one event, then you start getting bombarded with the emails, join this webinar for this brand and join this. It's like, how much time do you think people have? So I know that people want the return, but it's like any relationship, you know, imagine if that was dating.
But I mean, so yeah, and if it was dating, it would be totally different. If there was no,
there are no future marriages.
There's no, we're not going to go. That's a different session. Actually, dating at events should be a session, but that's TBD. But the other acronym, which yes, I will give credit to Abby on this one. Another with Abby Cannons with GRIP is ROI, which is the return on relationships. And I do think that if you use that acronym and that kind of terminology and actually define what kind of relationships what's your goal in relationships when attending an event, from an attendee perspective, buyers, partnerships, co-opetition, even competitors, to just say hello. It's a very incestuous, small industry. You will never leave. I always say it's like the song Hotel California. You can check in, you will never check out. So like never, ever. So if you define your relationships, those like media people at an event, for example, or even, you know, just really define that and you set goals to that. I honestly think, and even it could be the relationship to the industry event itself, or, you know, and to the speakers and to potential other sponsors, etc., where I think ROR works better than ROI.
It's a great piece to consider in your planning in the run up to the event, right? And actually, is that a better thing to measure than a generic lead count, which is still what happens so very often? And I think it depends again, why did you sponsor the event in the first place? It's all going to come back down to that why. But I imagine if you were to get a team together and challenge what value that would bring to an organization, I'd be amazed if the answer was no value in taking that approach. So
well,
it could be
wants to take massive. Us up on a challenge, I think they should. So totally.
It's cool. I also quite like the raw concept. I feel like there's something in that as well.
We should own that and then give credit to Abby, but we can still own that. Awesome. Any other questions from the audience? I know that Sean says ROR is a good one. Also check out the yes, we just did a GRIP. That was a shameless plug, but thanks, Sean. Check out the report on this topic. Yeah, it's actually a great topic. I do think, I mean, we're in the relationship business, so we have to think of the events and just getting together. Like those 50 people that got together with the Maserati gig, they probably didn't think they would get in the same room together.
Nope. Absolutely.
So those are relationships that were like, hey, I just, you know, got 50 more contacts on my LinkedIn. I'm good right now. So great conversation. Love it. Bat signal is gonna be on. So I don't know if you're gonna be able to like turn that thing off. It could be a Catwoman signal too, though.
I'm good with both. You know, okay. I'm flexible.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Great. Always great.
Thank you everybody for chiming in. You are the ultimate geniuses, sis. And get ready for upcoming webisodes. Again, if you want to be a guest speaker, if you want the bat signal or the Catwoman signal on for you, hey, just hit subscribe to our page, our YouTube channel. If you have topics that keep you up at night or that are controversial that no other show is going to talk about it, we got you. So we have the next coming sessions, May 11th, building your personal brand, being the celebrity CEO of your industry or of your community and network. May 18th, why is event AV so freaking expensive? Ooh, that's going to be thorny, but a good one. And thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.